Hey everyone, it's Paul from the Total Wealth Symposium, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, Charles Mizrahi. Charles, those of you who don't know, is actually a legendary investor from Wall Street, very famously called the 1987 stock market crash, and since then has gone on to do many incredible, amazing things. Charles, how are you finding your first Total Wealth Symposium?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Paul, for those kind words and those warm words. I love just the way you say them. Total Wealth Symposium really is amazing for a couple of reasons. One is I just really enjoy meeting with subscribers. Most of the people I've met with are really pleasant, nice people. They're intelligent, and more importantly, they really learn and gain knowledge and make money from the information that we're providing, which is really satisfying. So that's really a really phenomenal thing to see. And number two, it's just meeting all of the other great people at Banyan and sitting down with you and learning and watching great presentations and just gaining more information. It's just a win-win all around.
I agree. It's been fantastic here, and we're in this beautiful place. And you've been on Wall Street. You're a Wall Street legend. People know you. So, what's the difference? You've managed big money. How does it feel like, where, our readership, they're filled with regular folks, and you managed money for the big hitters. What's the difference? I mean, how do you feel about doing this for regular mom and pop retail investors, policemen, teachers? This is the folks that read us.
What I learned, Paul, is that they're not that much different than institutional investors. They really are, and you manage money and manage it quite successfully. And you, I'm sure, could share some stories as well, but people with their money, I don't care if they have hundreds of millions or $10,000 in their IRA, it's a very personal thing.
That's right.
And they try to show that it's not, but they get really personal. I remember times when we didn't meet our quarter, which meant that we underperformed the S&P over a short period of time, and institutional investors were coming with dogs and chains to shoot us down. It's just, guys, they talk long term, but they really look short term. And I think the main emotion that they both exhibit, which are the mom and pop and the institutions, and it's all really how to control it, is fear.
That's right.
Because fear makes you do silly things. And I'm sure you could tell me stories that when you manage money and you saw the same thing.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I always say the true fundamentals are fear and greed. In the end, that's what's there. What about some of your observations of what Wall Street does and that you take advantage of, for having that inside knowledge?
Yeah, I think one thing, and you've pointed it out also, is having a long-term perspective. Industries don't take off in one day.
That's right.
And they don't overnight, all of a sudden, the Internet of Things is there. It took years. And
it still is going to take some more years as it plays out.
Correct. Wall Street's focus, and I think this is what the mom and pop, our readership really has a big advantage. Wall Street has all of these institutional imperatives, meaning they're very short-term focused.
Right.
They really are constantly running a treadmill of trying to outperform other smart people. And over the short term, they make a lot of mistakes because their decisions are forced decisions.
Right.
The average investor has such an advantage, just don't see it so many times, that they don't have to report to a board. They don't have to beat any benchmark. Right. They can take a long-term perspective. They can look foolish for 6 months by getting into something early.
Right.
That's where the big money's made.
Right.
And they take their big advantage, most of them, and they use it against themselves. They'll think short term. So that's something that if one observation that I've made is that our readership, if they just take a longer term perspective, the world's your oyster.
I don't know if you've read, everyone's been recommended Reminiscences of a Stock Market Operator. And he says, all the big money is made in the sitting around and doing nothing. Now, that's true. We have slightly different styles of what's picks. I tend to be more growth, a little bit more speculative. Charles' style is, what would you say? Sort of like this value? Well, would that be where?
Value. I look at as a company as a business.
Yeah.
As a stock as a business.
Right.
And I just want to buy it when it's as cheap as possible. The only difference is You like to pay sometimes retail, I like to pay only wholesale. We both have the same thing of making money, but it's what we want to pay for it. So that's really it.
Yeah.
So you mentioned reminiscent of a stock operator, which I remember that. I read that when I was on the floor.
That's always like recommended to everybody.
Yeah, but people forget that he ended his life in the Plaza Hotel Oakland and he blew his brains out. You know, so he did say a lot of good things, and one of them is, you're 100% correct, the big money is made by the sitting. And the whole real advantage, and Charlie Munger said it, Warren Buffett's partner, he said investing is pretty simple. You basically buy a few great companies and then sit on your ass.
That's right.
That's it. So all this activity of working, and I always tell investors, and I told my investors when I ran my hedge funds and subscribers, I go, imagine you met Sam Walton in 1970 or 72. And he said, you know, look, take $10,000, buy my stock.
Right.
And you know anything about retail. And there was no market for it.
Right.
Would you be calling up Mr. Sam every quarter and saying, Sam, what are retail sales? It rained last week. You missed your numbers. You missed your quarter. The stock went down. Just leave him alone and you'd be worth billions.
Right. I mean, although I have heard that Warren Buffett kept pretty close tabs on See's Candies when he bought it.
Absolutely.
He did have sales faxed to him or called in pretty much every week. Called in, and that he also, you know, made sure they raised prices, I think twice a year on Valentine's Day. And I think before Christmas. That's right.
You know, that was it. It was
and you know,
See's
Candies. You know, I mean, that was like the first big winner. I mean, Coca-Cola is next, but See's Candies, and there was the stamp company,
Blue Chip
Stamps, and that was really the seeds of Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah, you know, 100% with See's Candy was his first venture outside of real stock investing, where he bought a business, but more importantly, he bought a business, he paid up for it.
Right.
He paid up for it. Charlie Munger said, don't let this get away. Sometimes you have to pay up for great businesses. And that's what he did. And Munger really taught him that, you know, a fair price for a great business is much better than an excellent price for a terrible business. That's it. And I think that's what you do a lot. You're looking for the great industries and trends and getting in on them and paying a little more if you need to, because you see the end result being huge.
I mean, being truthful, you know, I mean, I probably have more of a speculator trader's mentality and versus the investors. I go where the market's going with the idea that I'm going to get out and I'm going to make that call. What would you say is like is Warren Buffett the person that you would point to? Like for me, if I were to point to it, I would say for me it's Templeton.
Templeton.
He's the great investor that has really formed the way that I think, and I think about his comment, about markets, are built on pessimism, grow up on optimism. And
well, you know what he did right after in World War I, how he made all that money,
that's right?
That's an amazing story.
Right, yeah. What is Warren Buffett, and Charlie Munger, that's the model that you think in your mind, you think of like a great investor?
What I did was, as you did as well, you develop your thought process over time, right? So if you're the same person you were a year ago, you didn't grow. And you always try to destroy your best idea each year.
Right,
and
you only challenge it with things, and see
what the world's changing, right?
Yeah.
So I started out just reading everything I could about Warren Buffett. And then I realized Munger is an amazing human being. And I started learning more about him. And that took me to Ben Graham, and that took me to Phil Fisher. And that took me to modern day people that I know who are friends of mine who manage billions of dollars and developed along the way and saw what worked for them. What works for Buffett is not going to work for the average person many times. He's getting deals that you and I will never get. He gets those calls Sunday night, bail me out.
Yeah, hey, 15% on the preferred.
Right.
Yeah, payment guaranteed.
And stock, right? So we're not going to get those. But it's really building a framework, building an approach. And what I did is I took everything I've learned over the years and put it into an approach that basically is 3 steps. I want to find a company in a huge industry, because a slice of a watermelon is better than just eating a whole grape.
Right.
So I want to look at a company with a huge industry, a huge marketplace, a huge runway.
Right.
Secondly, most important thing is finding the guy managing the business.
Right.
Because I'm a passive investor. You're a passive investor. We're trusting our money.
We do not have control of the company.
We better find someone with integrity and someone who has a track record. Right?
Yeah, because there's a lot of that stuff that goes on Wall Street, and I've been victimized when I was an analyst.
Really?
Things like, all right, let's put some controversy into this, Charles. Let's go.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Are you ready? I hope you're ready. Bitcoin. Let's do this. Bitcoin. So you know where I stand on Bitcoin, and I think I know where you stand on Bitcoin. Well, this is going to be put on YouTube,
Okay.
and at Banyan Hill we have a lot of different opinions and we have a lot of different styles of investing. Many of you know mine, and those of you that read Charles, you know his. But Charles made a comment to me. I was like, "This would be an interesting discussion." So let's give people a little red meat.
All right, you
to
got
end
it.
this
You
with,
got it.
And since we're both from Brooklyn, like I lived in Brooklyn, and Charles lives in Brooklyn. He was fascinated that I'd lived in all of these places.
Wow.
That he was like, "Paul, all these places you lived in Brooklyn?
Bad places, bad places, bad places.
Just no-nos, But Bitcoin is kind of like my neighborhoods in Brooklyn for you, in a kind of way.
Yeah, it's a bad neighborhood. Bad neighborhood.
So
I don't recommend anyone go there.
Right. But still,
okay,
But there's a
we'll have
case
some
if you-
fun. We'll have some fun. So I think we're a little bit different in terms of where we think our price projections of Bitcoin are. Mine is 0, and I think yours is more than 0. So right there.
So let's say, it's not a poster. Yours is 0, mine is 1 million.
Yeah, so we're not even close. We're not even close. And I'll tell you why. For me.
Right.
I don't understand Bitcoin, and I just don't get it.
Right.
And I've asked so many intelligent people,
right,
what is the underlying worth of Bitcoin?
Right.
And no one could really give me an answer.
Right.
Because I don't know if 1,000 is cheap or 1,000's expensive.
Right.
Maybe $1 million is a cheap price if it's worth 10 million.
Right.
I just don't know. So what I do, Paul, is I keep my life pretty simple. I put that in the too hard pile. I don't have to know everything about everything. I just know I have to know a lot about a few things.
Right.
And that's outside of my circle of competence. So I never invested in it. I will admit that one time someone gave me 1 Bitcoin back in 2017. And when I asked one of my, right before the run up, and it made a lot of money, I asked my son to go in and find out what that's worth just a few months ago because I had the card or whatever.
Right.
And he said, "Pop, it was stolen."
It was what?
Stolen.
Okay.
Money's not there. I said,
But
another
Bitcoin,
great reason.
you were hacked.
Bitcoin, I was hacked.
You were hacked, okay.
And I said, that's another great reason why I'll never invest in Bitcoin, I have nowhere to go. Where do I go? What government agency? So I can't understand it. I don't know how to value it. I don't know what the underlying worth is. And I have 3 simple rules. If I can't understand it and I can't figure out the underlying worth, I shouldn't invest in it. Now, if someone else can do that, God bless them. It's a big world out there. I don't have to know it. I can put that in my too hard pile and stick to things I do know.
What about your sons?
My sons, I basically told them I'd throw them out of the house if they ever bought a Bitcoin. So we have a lot of discussion over that. But in fact, they do bring friends over, and their friend, Mr. Mizrahi, can I ask you a question? I go, if it's Bitcoin, get the hell out of here. So then we leave it at that. But the thing is, like I said, Paul, I don't know a lot about a whole bunch of things. I don't need to. As an investor, I learned over 35 years. I just have to know my little 4 corners of the earth. I just have to know that area that I'm good at. And that's going to give me my edge. If I try to be a jack of all trades, I'll be a master of none, and that's definitely not how to make money.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's in the end, everyone at Banyan Hill, we focus on what we're good at, and we've got some incredible people here, including Charles. Great to have this chat with you, Charles.
Likewise, Paul, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Oh, one last shameless plug. Please, though, we've still got a day and a half left of some unbelievable material. It's gone on the live stream. You also get the digital archive. You can watch all the stuff before. So please, you can still subscribe, still watch. So check into the link, subscribe to the live stream.
You know what the whole thing is, Paul? One more thing before you go.
One more thing.
One good idea, and that's it. And throughout my investing life, I've always found that I could spend money on this. All I need is just one good idea. And you never know where it comes from. You never know where it comes from. So the ideas that are at the Total Wealth Symposium, if you just walk away with one good idea, you just paid the price. So it's really worth it. So I can't recommend it more than I have. It's just absolutely fantastic.
So this time, goodbye for real from Total Wealth Symposium.